Hello friends, Moses Designer here, and in today's episode of Doom Eternal Gameplay Thoughts, I'm going to be discussing the boss fights. So this episode might be a bit longer, but hopefully you guys will enjoy it. It might be the last one I do for Doom Eternal, but we'll see. But anyways, back on topic with boss fights. So when it comes to boss fights, some are good and memorable, others are terrible and you want to forget and never play them again. So how do the boss fights of Doom Eternal stack up within the context of the game and as boss fights in general? So this discussion today is going to cover that, my thoughts on the boss fights and how they pan out, and kind of range their difficulty in terms of gameplay. The first boss fight in Doom Eternal is the Doom Hunter. This one is quite interesting because you get to see this boss being put together as you go through the Doom Hunter base. By the end of the level, you get to see the Hell Priest Greatest Creation, which is the new Doom Hunter that is going to be your first boss fight within Doom Eternal.
Long thought to be extinct, created to hunt only the Slayer and his night sentinels during the unholy crusades. Some improvements on their design have been made. Enjoy what is undoubtedly my finest work.
So with each boss fight, there's a bit of a tutorial, and I don't know if this is available on the harder difficulties because I played the game and hurt me plenty, and I'm completing my harder difficulty playthrough now. But for the Doom Hunter, the tactic is that you need to use your pulse rifle to bring the shields down. And when the shields are down, you need to use a heavy weapon to destroy the Doom Hunter from his floating base. So not that difficult, you just have to follow the tactic of lowering his shields and then separating him from the floating base that he has. But in terms of UI, at the top of the screen with each boss fight, there is a health bar showing you how much health the boss has, and 2 pips at the top as well. The pips at the top of the health bar indicate how many phases a boss has. In the case of the Doom Hunter, he has 2 phases. I've already completed the first, and I'm on the second. So after dealing enough damage, getting to his second phase, and completing it, he goes to a glory kill state and chopped in half by the Doom Slayer. So that is the first boss fight, the Doom Hunter. The thing to note is that the Doom Hunter now appears as a regular enemy throughout the game. Now the second boss fight, well, it's not really a boss fight, and I'll explain why. It kind of feels like one, but it is not presented like one. But it has big contention within the Doom community and raises questions of get good, or you suck, or I hate this character. It's the infamous Marauder.
Opening the portal now.
You were never one of us. You were nothing but a usurper, a false idol. My eyes have been opened. Let me help you to see, Slayer.
The tutorial for the Marauder pretty much instructs you to keep a mid-range distance. If you get too close, he'll hit you with an axe. If you stay too far away, he'll defend himself with a shield. So you have to find that sweet spot in the middle to shoot him. And there's also a green flash that kind of shows where his opening is or weak spot for you to get a shot off. And he also has a dog. The dog is super annoying, so try to kill that first when you encounter this boss. So in my first attempt, I really don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to figure out the weak spot. I'm just getting wrecked. And here's my second frustration with this boss, or rather first. I don't know why I said second. He doesn't feel like a boss fight because there's no health bar at the top, nor a number of pips to show his phases. So basically he's being treated like a new enemy encounter, like the Mancubus, the Revenant, or, you know, the different new enemies you see in the game. So he's being treated like an enemy type rather than a boss. But this encounter feels like a boss fight. So I feel like this first encounter should have had a health bar at the top to know how much damage you've done and how much you have left, because this is a major encounter with a really badass character, but you feel frustrated as you don't know if you're winning or losing the fight. One thing to note about the boss fights in Doom Eternal, including the Doom Hunter and this semi-boss fight of the Marauder, is that the game gives you enough cannon fodder around the map for you to use your chainsaw, your blood punch, and other tactics to get glory kills, armor, and ammo as needed for the boss fight, so you never feel starved for your resources during a boss fight. Now, how you get to those resources and how you manage them is on you as player skill. The developers have given you the toolbox. You just have to use your skill, your surroundings, and your weapons wisely so you don't get wrecked like I did right there, and you always have enough health, armor, and ammo. So I believe this is my 5th attempt. I think I'm doing better as I found the sweet spot, and I'm using just a shotgun to shoot him in his midsection, I guess, and you see the chunks of flesh fall off. So I know I'm doing it right, but his movement speed, his attack speed, and the damn dog really put you on edge, and you don't know. You can feel frantic in a way. Like, you have to manage them, you have to manage the cannon fodder, your ammo, everything. So it's very overwhelming that it feels like a boss fight. But like I said, it's not presented as one. In a way, the Marauder kind of feels cheap, but he's not. He does feel OP the first time you encounter him, but later on you know how to deal with him, because like the Doom Hunter, the Marauder does show up in enemy waves in other levels. So I understand why people think this is a bad character or a overly difficult fight, because he does feel cheap, but again, going back to what I hate saying, but it's like Dark Souls, you gotta learn the pattern, learn the timing, and if you get it right, the Marauder's not that hard. I will admit, I'm doing a terrible job right now in this gameplay footage, but overall, later on in the game, I knew how to manage the Marauder better than I did in my first encounter in this space right here. So once again, I'm in my, 6th or 7th attempt, and I got wrecked. On my 8th or 9th attempt, I was doing better, I was managing the Marauder very well, but I killed him very quickly to my own surprise, with an ice bomb right there. He just disappeared. How that happened, I have no idea. I'm not even looking for him, like, is he hiding in the corner somewhere? But clearly I won, but I didn't feel like I won. Kind of anticlimactic. So the next proper boss fight in the game is the Gladiator. Again, the language of Doom Eternal, green is good, green is the way to go. In the case of this boss fight, when the eyes of the shield glow green, that is your opening to shoot the Marauder. Otherwise, he has that shield up and you really can't do much. So compared to the other boss fights in the game, this one is a bit slower paced. You can keep your distance and you won't get, beat up by the Marauder, or not the Marauder, sorry, the Gladiator. So like the Doom Hunter, you have a health bar and you have pips showing the number of phases this boss has. In this case, 2. On hard difficulties, there might be more. I haven't seen that yet, but here's the first one and the first glory kill. So back at full health, the Gladiator doesn't have his shield, but he has 2 maces. Again, the language of green, when his eyes glow green, that is your shot to kill the boss. So overall, I think the tutorials are nice. I don't know if they're there because I'm playing on Hurt Me Plenty in these videos, and I'm not playing, right now I'm playing on Ultra Violent, and I haven't come to a boss fight yet. so correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the tutorials are good, but they might be a bit too handholdy because it's fun to, in my thinking, is to figure out how to kill the boss rather than being told how to kill the boss. You know what I mean? Like, I want to figure out the weak spot. I want to figure out how do I kill this behemoth of a character that is larger than life. Being told how to do it kind of takes the fun out of it. So I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, one way it does take out the frustration. I know what to do, but it does make it handholdy of telling me how to beat the boss. So I'm contented on that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I just love the fact that for the Doomslayer, the answer to any conversation is just to shoot the person in the head. Now we come to the Conmaker, which is Doom Eternal's answer to angels. They're kind of robotic-like in a way. So, like all the bosses, the tutorial for the Conmaker is to keep shooting her, and when her damage gets down to 0, you need to get up close and punch her. And I did not pay attention to the directions, and I kept trying to figure out how to kill the Conmaker by just shooting stuff at her and not realizing I have to get up close and punch her in the face. So I got up close, but I just shot her and nothing happened. And her health went back to full. Now, compared to the other boss fights, the Conmaker actually has 6 phases, and there I finally figured out what to do right, and when I punched her, one of the pips went down, so now I have 5 stages to go. Now, unlike the other arenas where there's a lot of cannon fodder, here you have to shoot these, I forgot the name of them, but they're basically the Conmaker's minions. Shoot them in the head and they'll drop a ton of ammo and health and armor and all the good stuff, so shooting them is the key to winning this boss fight and also taking cover. With each phase of the Conmaker's, stages going down, the more the floor becomes lava. Literally. Like, she keeps throwing stuff so that there's very few places to hide and run. So eventually at the final stage when you punch her, her wings burn off, the ground becomes back to normal, and there's a pretty big cutscene discussing more lore and conflict between heaven and hell of Doom Eternal.
Was meant to and all just to protect them. Servants to our beliefs. You have broken the holy seal of Urdak. No transgressions here will jeopardize all of creation.
Now we come to the main attraction, which was a kind of lame boss fight in Doom 2, but now in Doom Eternal it is fully realized the main granddaddy of evil, the Icon of Sin. Now for this boss fight, you have to hit the Icon of Sin in 8 unique places. When all 8 places fall apart, you've pretty much whittled his whole health bar down. And for this fight, there are 2 phases given by the 2 pips at the top. Now, I thought this was a one-on-one fight with me and the Icon of Sin, but then I realized, there's gargoyles, there's imps, and then eventually there's Hell Knights and Mancubus, and everything, including the kitchen sink, is thrown at me, and I'm like, what the hell? I have to manage the Icon of Sin and all these enemies. This is not going to be easy. So yeah, with the amount of enemies being thrown at you, you definitely are put on your toes in this boss fight, even though just shooting the Icon of Sin in the 8 unique spots is not that hard. The other enemies in the space will give you a run for your money. The good thing is, however, a lot of the pickups around the world, including the recharge for Blood Punch and other weapons and ammo, do respawn frequently around the map, so if you keep running around, you can always find things to recharge your weapons with. So yeah, I'm just running around shooting the enemies, trying to get my bearings, and then I totally forgot about this, but I have a sword. That's right, boys and girls, you have a sword in Doom Eternal. So let me wind back a bit. in an earlier level, you actually pick up the sword from a dead Titan demon in a very cool cutscene, but you break off the hilt, so that's a problem. So now that you have the hilt of the sword, throughout your journey you have to find the other pieces to put it back together, because it is kind of your crucible or super weapon as a Doomslayer. So down the road you find the eye of the sword, and you kind of snap that into place. Then eventually you find this pool of red awesomeness, dip in the hilt, and voila! You have a badass sword. In a very He-Man, Thundercats, very 80s moment. I have the power kind of style. You have a sword, and you are unstoppable. So back to the Icon of Sin. My dumbass, not knowing I had a sword and all the pickups to recharge the sword, finally using it made killing the minions and other AI way faster than it was previously. So yeah, I was able to recharge that sword pretty quickly with the pickups, and then when I had the time, I'd focus my shots on the Icon of Sin to break his 8 armor pieces. So at this stage, I'm just trying to shoot the last piece, which is his torso, but given the level movement and trying to manage my health, armor, and chopping other enemies in half, it was quite a challenge to get to that last piece of armor to bring him to 0 of 8 and get to the second phase of the boss fight. So using the sword is so satisfying. Just chopping enemies in half is like a warm knife through butter. It just never gets old. So compared to the Doom Hunter, the Marauder, Gladiator, and the Conmaker, I think this is the most challenging fight, but it seems worthy so in a game where the last boss should be challenging. I mean, it's a freaking giant demon with an armor on him, so being a bullet sponge makes sense in this case. It doesn't feel frustrating where it's like a human being in a game and you keep shooting them in the head and they don't die because of gameism bullet sponges. This is a freaking demon. Granted, he can take the shots. So with the armor removed, the Icon is in his back without any armor pieces, but you have to repeat the same thing, shoot him 8 times in 8 unique places until those pieces kind of fall apart. And the more you keep shooting him, see more skeleton and chunks of his flesh falling off, which looks really cool in terms of presentation. So the second phase is a lot harder than it should be in any good boss fight, and it does that by making the level more frantic. The theming, the lighting, the atmosphere, the enemies that spawn all keep you on your feet and moving, because if you stand still, you will die pretty quickly in the second phase. Luckily, like the first phase, there's plenty of pickups for your blood punch, the sword, yeah, the dumb sword which I forgot about, fuel for your chainsaw, health pickups, and plenty of cannon fodder for you to get the glory kills to recharge your own resources. At this stage in the fight, I'm just trying to get the Icon of Sin's left arm down as the last piece, but it's proving extremely challenging as I'm being thrown with every possible enemy in the situation. And right at that moment, I got the left arm down, but my health is super low, so I am frantically trying to find health because I would hate to die at this moment at the very last second of the boss fight. And to my luck, there's a health pack right there. Broken, beaten, and scarred, the Icon of Sin is about to go down with a sword blade to the head. Oh yeah, I also unlocked the classic Doom Marine outfit, so very fitting for the end of the game. So in general, what do I think about the boss fights of Doom Eternal? They're quite fitting for the game they exist in. They weren't shitty, they weren't overly frustrating. They're Marauder, kind of, but I've explained why. And overall, the boss fights in the game were perfect, and they're just right number of boss fights. It wasn't overwhelming with too many boss fights, because that can get frustrating in a game as well.
And you will be their savior. Your strength will be their shield, and your will their sword. You remain unbroken, for your fight is eternal.
And that is the end of the game, boys and girls. I really had a lot of fun playing Doom Eternal. I hope you guys enjoyed my discussion videos. I didn't do too many, just 3. I think that's good enough. And overall, if you haven't played Doom Eternal and this inspired you to go play it, minus the spoilers, definitely go play it. But if you have other thoughts on Doom Eternal or you want to share, let me know in the comments below. But overall, as a full package, it was a fantastic game with the level design, audio. Yeah, the jump puzzles pissed me off a little bit, but the boss fights are great. Again, it's a 10 out of 10 game. It deserves the praise. So if you made it this far, thank you. I rambled on a lot about the boss fights and other stuff. As usual, like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you very much. Goodbye.